Professor Yuan, you mentioned that you believe that the Philippines wanted to show that they would go work shoulder to shoulder with the U.S. To deter China, and that, I guess, is what the Balikatan exercise is, the annual exercise between the U.S. and the Philippines. Now, last year, as that one concluded, Teodoro said that the following year would be the biggest yet. Do you believe that will continue under Trump?
From the regional panorama view, one could easily discern a pattern of the very aggressive military preparedness of all the ASEAN nation. Philippines is included. So I am pretty much anticipated the Philippines will do whatever it is desirable for their determination.
Okay. And Tony, do we know anything about Trump's own position on the U.S. commitment to the Philippines? Should it be any different to the first term?
I think we should take a wait-and-see attitude. As far as the 2025 Balikatan exercise, I do believe it will continue because the momentum has been moving forward. I'm sure the initial planning meeting has taken place and the units have been assigned and budget being allocated because it's May next year. I'm just not sure, like I said earlier, how Trump views the alliance partners and our alliance commitments, and not feel that America's been taken advantage of. And I think that's a critical point. And if he surrounds himself with good staff, and I also don't know what the new Secretary of Defense thinks about the alliance. So truly, I think we can only take a wait-and-see attitude to see what happens after inauguration.
Do you believe that Trump's demands for more payment, I believe that for South Korea he was asking during the campaign for $10 billion a year? I mean, you actually know the costs of these and how much other allies pay. I mean, it jumped up from $5 billion to $10 billion. Do these sorts of demands put a strain, do you think, on the U.S. alliances in the region?
It certainly does. Actually, I think the latest agreement Biden signed is $2 billion a year, and it's going to jump fivefold. So it's an unreasonable demand for that kind of money, obviously. And it will hurt the alliance if he actually tried to execute what he said, because U.S. presence actually benefits the United States. So it's not a one-sided thing. Our presence, forward presence, actually, primary reason is to defend the homeland. Our friends allow us to forward deploy so that we can be in front of our enemies, so that in case of war, we fight in the enemy's house versus our house. That was the original intent of forward presence. So now, to monetize that, I'm not sure how many countries would, accept it. And what I worry about is, what if our enemy use that as an information warfare tool and start a wave of Yankee go home? Remember, it happened to us in the Philippines.
Yeah.
So if we start doing that, would there be a new wave of Yankee go home? And that would really damage U.S. national security.
Right. And Professor Yuan, let's also talk about the Typhoon missile system, which is still in the Philippines. In fact, satellite imagery by Planet Labs shows that it's located on the most northern tip of the Philippines mainland, Ilocos Norte, and that this is facing South China Sea and also very close to the Taiwan Strait. Now, of course, Beijing has previously demanded that this missile system be removed. It, by the way, can hit targets in China, and China says it must be removed because it's destabilizing the region. Do you think under the Trump administration that they would, again, continue to have this sort of missile system there?
I think one needs to take into account the strategic posture that U.S. is taking. I think that reminds me about the during the Cold War era, the U.S. Deployment of intermediate range missile to deter USSR's long-range missile. So it's a coupling strategy. Under the aegis of the U.S. leadership, I think the U.S. will, place certain intermediate range missile along the parameter. Then it looks like they are doing now. So another additional implication I'm thinking of whether this pattern of the deployment be also applicable to the two islands under Taiwan's control, or if needed in the future. So it shall be very, very dynamic.
Okay, and Tony, the concept of China saying that this missile system is destabilizing the region. Let's tackle that in terms of what missiles China has. Professor said it was more leveling the playing field.
Yes, if we look at this, it's so disingenuous for them to say that. They have more of these intermediate range and short range missiles deployed than any other country in this region. And they can use that to threaten everybody else, but they themselves don't want to be threatened. So basically, that's what they're trying to say. So Typhoon system is very capable, and certainly is capable of striking China from what it's at right now. And it certainly puts China's southern fleet in Hainan Island at risk, because it can basically hit everything that's in it or coming out of it. With that Typhoon system. And
also know that Manila is actually purchasing a system. So it says the reason why it's there is because they need to train ahead of an actual purchase.
Right, and Manila already purchased the Russian-Indian BrahMos missiles and supersonic low-level cruise missile. So Manila is arming itself with one enemy in mind, which is China. And so I think this is all good for deterrence, and hopefully we never have to get into it and get an international agreement where China follows UNCLOS, and so it could be all equal, because China has a piece of South China Sea that belongs to them, and Philippines has the West Philippine Sea area. So UNCLOS has a very equitable division of the sea, China's historical claim obviously is not recognized. It's like the Italians can claim all the lands the Romans had, right, if you want to go back to that. So hopefully one day the party chairman of China decides, okay, we'll become a rule-abiding members of the international community and recognize this more equitable division rather than sticking with the historic claim.
And Professor Yuan, we know that Trump, in his first administration, was the first US president to actually name China as a strategic challenge, as in essence a threat to the US's national security interests. So should we actually be expecting a much stronger, harder stance by the Trump administration in these hotspots of Asia where China is being quite aggressive?
The last few years has already demonstrated not only did the South China Sea, I think that we should incorporate it of its entirety, ranging from the East China Sea and also to Taiwan Strait, and also along with the South China Sea. I think a PLA is playing a war game that is interrelated. It may not necessarily targeting on one spot. Rather, it simply wants to create a spontaneous scenarios. For instance, one scenario would be, actually, they really want to exploit the Taiwan Strait scenario. Rather, they create some crisis in South China Sea. So one has to take into account of the three seas altogether, which I think would provide the live ammunition for the incoming presidency to tackle.